Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome, 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 everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. Just really quickly, let me introduce myself. My name is Lumumba Bandele. I am an organizer with the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement and working alongside a number of other amazing, brilliant, creative, committed people in the Bring Sundiata Acoli Home Alliance. And thank you for joining Art4Liberation this evening. Just a few things before we get started. We are going to make space towards the end of the discussion for questions from the audience. So I'm going to ask that you write your questions down. You will not be able to audibly or via video ask your questions. We're going to ask that you put your questions in the chat and your questions will be read when the time is allowed. So we're going to ask that you actually prepare a question, not necessarily a thesis or anything. We're not asking for additional panelists. We're going to ask that you actually ask some questions while we have these amazing guests with us. So I am going to begin. We are recording this event also, so people who have not been able to make time to log on, this event will be able to be seen later on the Sundiata Acoli YouTube page, as well as some of the other partner organizations who will be able to rebroadcast later. So once again, good evening and welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Art4Liberation. So throughout global history, freedom movements have utilized art as a tool for liberation. Our freedom movement here in the United States has a lengthy and impactful history of doing just that, utilizing different art forms as a tool for liberation. This evening, we will engage in practical and contemporary, in a practical and contemporary discussion within this particular context. And so we are honored to explore the work of three amazing visual artists and be in conversation with two of them. Before we begin this conversation, we're going to take a few minutes to hear from one of the artists whose work we will be discussing and whose freedom we're all committed to securing, Baba Sundiata Acoli. Before we play this brief message, I'm going to ask attorney and organizer, Sister Sophia Elijah, to hop in and to talk to us really quickly for those of us who are not too familiar with Sundiata Acoli, to share really quickly who he is and why we'll be discussing him. And then we're going to hear a brief recording from him directly. Sister Sophia, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, everyone. Sundiata Acoli is an 84-year-old brilliant man who's been incarcerated for the past 48 years. He is a former employee of NASA. He has a bachelor in science and mathematics, studied graduate courses, actually completed all of the work to get a master's. He was a leader in the Harlem chapter of the Black Panther Party. And in 1973, he was arrested and captured along with Assata Shakur in connection with a New Jersey Turnpike shootout that resulted in the death of Zaid Shakur, who was a passenger in the car with them, and New Jersey trooper Werner Foster. He and Assata were sentenced to life plus 30 years, and Sundiata has been incarcerated since that time. He's an amazing artist, proud father and grandfather and friend and mentor to literally hundreds of people that he has supported over the past almost 5 decades. So I think I'll stop there, and I hope that all of you enjoy the program this evening.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you very much. We are going to play this quick recording. And hopefully folks can hear. All right.
Being a father to my daughters, my dearest darlings, and a father to you, is a lifetime of joys. Let's fear sometimes that you don't doubt you are the love to my life. I have loved you unconditionally, all my heart and soul. First day that you entered this world, I have instructed you for what I thought was right, or needed my advice. Protected you from harm, which made you approached, despite the often 1,000-mile distance between us, celebrated your joys and eased your pains as best we could, stage of your life. Even telephone and made happy birthday cards, really hovercrafted to this for your entertainment. From big print postal letters and various pencil drawings, African fable book, Sundiata. And I learned to paint so that I could give you portraits that reflected your soul. I painted firstborn Clarita and young girls for Sony. I gave the book Malcolm X Speaks plus Cash to Rita. Painted Moon Goddess for Sony. Painted Black Family for Rita. And I supported and I made a handwritten.
This call is from a federal prison.
The Black Family made a handwritten French calculus book for Sony. Throughout, I supported your goals and admitted your setbacks with promises that we'll get them next time. There's no other way to say it than our children are our future. It is increasingly necessary that all men be loving and supportive fathers to their children. To prevail against the hate, paganism being stirred against Black, other children of color, poor, and of oppressed, of the oppressed of this world. I thank you for your Happy Father's Day greeting. At 10,000 signatures on the online petition, making my Father's Day an extremely happy one. Of all, struggle, dead, on the other.
So some very moving words from our leader, mentor, teacher, and artist that we'll be discussing today, Sundiata Acoli. He shared this message right before Father's Day, and we wanted to play that because in it he talks about not only his role as a father and what that means for him and his purpose, but he talks about it in terms of why he began to create art in the first place, which is for his daughters. And so in that particular vein, I want to proceed by introducing our guests this evening. We are truly, truly honored to be joined by two amazing visual artists in their own right. First, I want to introduce Sister Sophia Dawson. Sophia is a Brooklyn and Atlanta-based visual artist who's dedicated her life's work to exposing the stories and experiences of individuals who are striving to overcome the injustices they face both individually and collectively. By raising awareness of these individuals, she aims to humanize social justice and to prevent such experiences from being repeated in the future. Sophia holds a bachelor's degree in fine arts from the School of Visual Arts and a master's degree in visual arts administration from New York University. Please join me in welcoming Sister Sophia Dawson. We are also joined by our good brother, Emory Douglas. Brother Emory is an internationally acclaimed visual artist. He is well known as the revolutionary artist and then minister of culture for the Black Panther Party for self-defense. From February 1967 until early 1980s, he fulfilled that particular role. Douglas's art and design concepts were always seen on the front and back pages of the Black Panther newspaper, reflecting the politics of the Black Panther Party and the concerns of the community. He attended City College of San Francisco, where he majored in commercial art. Thank you both for joining us this evening. How y'all doing? Hold up, let's get y'all off mute so we can hear you.
Doing fine, very good.
Good, good, good. Sister Sophia, how you holding up?
I'm doing really well, by God's grace.
Good, 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 good. So again, we really appreciate you all's presence. Thank you for being here. And so we want to dive in into some discussion and to talk really quickly about you all, and more specifically, Sophia, you can start us off. Can you talk to us about your introduction to Sundiata Acoli? How and when did you meet him?
Yes, so I believe in 2010, after I took an African American history class at the School of Visual Arts, I learned about political prisoners for the first time in that class. And then I don't really remember the series of events, but one thing led to another, and I ended up at the Breck Forum, which no longer exists, at a Black History Month or Black August celebration. And I met Dekwe, who at the time was advocating for Sekou's freedom and other political prisoners. So she recommended, I believe she introduced me to Brother Shet, who at the time was doing the Know Your Rights. No, that's not what it was called. The anti-police brutality classes, that's what they were called. In the Sada Morales Center up at City College. And also once a month, they were doing card signings. So I was going to the political prisoner card signings just to, you know, sign birthday cards and learn about the different individuals that we were writing. And then at some point, I started to write too much. And that too much was in a card to Sundiata. And I don't remember, it was probably Shep who was like, basically like, yeah, you're taking up too much space. So you should just write your own letter instead of signing the card because other people have to sign this card. And that's pretty much how I started writing Sundiata. I believe he was the first political prisoner that I actually corresponded with. And yeah, that was my intro.
Wonderful, thank you. And so for those who don't know, the artwork on the flyer of this particular event and the artwork that is used for the Bring Sundiata Acoli Home Alliance is created by Sophia Dawson. And so thank you for that. Brother Emory, if you can talk a little bit about your introduction to Sundiata. We know you both were members of the Panther Party at the same time in different chapters, but can you talk about your introduction to him?
Yeah, well, that is the introduction, as it was to all the Panthers, comrades who were in different chapters. It was in spirit. It's a unifying around the ideas of quality of life issues that we were struggling for, self-determination. And so that was in that spirit that we came together as comrades. I'm not sure if I can't recall meeting Brother Sundiata, but I have been to the chapter, Harlem chapter, slept on the desk at night in the chapter and what have you. So, but yes.
Good. And so we're going to be talking about, in fact, we should just pivot to there any minute right now, because I want us to just dive into some of the work that you have done, particularly around the case of the Panther 21. And so you have a number of pieces that you have created, and let's talk, if we can, really quickly about one of those in particular. So this was the paper, the Black Panther Party paper. And is that a photograph or is that a painting of a photograph? And this was something that you created visually for the paper. Can you talk a little bit about this piece?
Yes, it was a photograph that I remixed and played with to give the visual of a posterization of the artwork itself. And it was about to free the New York 21 and all political prisoners. I think this may have been in the party itself. We had this volume of political prisoners being trumped up charges at one time at that point. Yeah, and so this was to show, bring attention to it this coming.
Right. Right. And for those who may not know, Sundiata Acoli was actually one of the New York 21 who was rounded up and arrested and faced trial for those ridiculous charges. There's more information about the entire case and Sundiata's role and experiences in that. You also created another piece on the Panther 21. Can you talk a little bit about this piece as well?
Yes, well, this is about the judicial system in the United States. They give the illusion that they get a fair and just trial when the verdict has already been decided. And so this is basically dealing with that as the judicial system, the court system, all of it is about blood-sucking vulture with the lynch and the gavel combination together. The true symbols of fascism, no matter if it was Judge Murtaugh or another judge, it would have still been the same.
Got it. And where was this? Was this in the paper, the Panther Party paper?
Yes, this was in several papers, repeated. It was it was on one time, I believe, on the front and back of the New York, may have been on the back of one of the New York 21 papers as well.
Got it.
Not that appeared in several papers, yes.
Thank you. Did any of your pieces appear outside of the Panther papers? Were they featured in other places? Did you share them in other places other than Panther?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, they were used. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. During that time, they were sampled by many and people who had asked to use them in publications as posters. We printed posters of many of the works that we did. We've had people who've done T-shirts of the Free the New York 21. So it had been used broadly, yeah, in that context.
Got it. Thank you. And so, Sister Sophia Dawson, I want to move to you because I'm curious to hear about your process, and I would like to just know about the political nature of your work. If you can talk about these two pieces particularly, and at what point did the content of your work shift to a political nature, or was that something that had happened prior to? But how did you get to this particular substance in your art?
Yes, please. So the shift pretty much happened literally the day I walked out of the class that I mentioned before. I never really had a purpose behind my work before learning about the Panthers, before learning about political prisoners, also before learning about all the lives that were stolen during that movement. So my initial reaction was just to, honestly, I went to predominantly white schools my whole life, and then I went to art school. So I had friends that, went to schools in our neighborhood and then went to historically Black colleges. So I thought that maybe, they would know about this history because they went to those types of schools. But I found that a lot of people still didn't know that political prisoners existed, even my friends that I expected to know that history. So the first political work that I did was really just giant portraits of people who were key figures in the movement, just so that someone would ask me who was that, just so that I could share the history with them. That was literally all I was doing in the beginning. Until I met Dequi and understood that I originally thought that political imprisonment was something from the past. I didn't know that there were still political prisoners in 2010 until I met Dequi. So pretty much that's when things shifted. And then now, I guess, over the past 11 years, the work has gone from being, it still feels like activism and advocacy for sure, but much more in alignment with service. And that's one thing that I love most. I love most when I learn about and think about the legacy of the Panthers, the selflessness of what they did. This notion of, I am willing to lay down my life essentially for the sake of the generation that's coming behind me. So I really consider my work now, it is political work, but it feels more like ministry. Like, okay, if there's a need, how does it need to be met? And that's all lined up with my Christian walk And yeah, the way Jesus lived, he didn't really spend a day doing anything for his own benefit. He was serving the needs of other people. And so I have every responsibility with the gift that God gave me to do the same. And yeah, and then the way the work looked changed over time. So it started with just big portraits, and then I started adding black glitter and diamond dust and stuff like that to the hair to make it look real. And then, you know, behind Yaz, who's on the left side, you know, those are letters written to me from Abdul, telling me to get in touch with her, not knowing that I already knew her, me not knowing that they were married, but having spent time with her and written to him before. And then on the right side, those are scriptures that I stand on in this liberation work about liberation from the Bible. So it's, yeah, a lot of it started off with just being like letters, and then it was an art project, but now it's like, this is my lifestyle. And I can't, there's no turning back at this point. So yeah.
Thank you. Brother Emory, I wanted to ask you as well. Most of, if not all of your pieces are of a political nature. Was that something that was part of your, development as an artist, or did that happen after your joining the Panther Party? At what point did the content of your art become political?
Well, I think it began to evolve and start when I was in the Black Arts movement, transitioning into the Black Panther Party. That was during the Black Conscious era, when we began to define ourselves as Black African American, and those debates were going on, transitioning and changing the names of the student unions from Negro Student Union to Black Student Unions. Those issues, I think, it was the beginning or the seeds of when I began to blossom with the artwork itself. And when I got into the Black Panther Party, because of the skills that I had learned, basic skills of doing pre-press production work that played right into the newspaper that wanted to put out, and understanding the politics and the foundation of what was going in the party. Therefore, the artwork kind of played or was determined by that itself.
And so
it
can you
evolved and grew on the platform program, whatever.
Got it. And so what mediums did your art initially take? What did you use? Was it painting? What was your particular preference initially and currently?
Well, basically in the during that time, it was pen and ink, markers, acrylics, basics, and then the same thing when I went to San Francisco City College. You learned various things, figure drawing, designing, all those elements. So when you learn them, you was put together what kind of medium they use, all those kinds of things that went into it. But in the organization, because it couldn't afford a lot of color, it was just the pen and ink, markers that we had to work with, and then had to understand the process of using the inks and overland to get that color, of trying to get a full color, just using one color plus black ink, and those kinds of things. So it was basically, my work was basically done for reproduction, to be mass produced in relationship to posters or what have you.
Understood. Thank you. And Sister Sophia, what about you? Your mediums are what? Your preferred, and have they changed over time?
Yeah, so I personally prefer oil paint. However, only certain circumstances will allow for me to use oil paint, AKA you gotta be working outdoors, you need a slop sink or a hose because you can't get oils in the kitchen sink. Oil paint is also toxic. So I honestly haven't really, I oil painted once since I became a parent, and that's because it wasn't healthy when I was pregnant, and then once I got off of it, but I prefer oil paint. But most of my work is done in acrylic. I do large scale murals, which is also why acrylic paint is usually around, because of the public artwork as well. But definitely collage. So I've always love doing portraits, and then everything else feels like work. The portraits, very easy. Hour, 2 hours to knock a face out by the grace of God. But once I get past that, everything else literally just feels so laborious. So I've learned how to deal with the backgrounds in a way that's fun, because I just never really got into painting like faces and full backgrounds. So collage, fabric, textures, mustard seeds, that's like my newest ingredient. Mustard seeds, that tiny little, it's I started using it based on scripture, because basically in scripture, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you should be able to tell a mountain to move and it'll move. And mustard seeds are really, really tiny, but they're also beautiful when you have a lot of them together. So mustard seeds are in my paintings now, gold leaf. There's a lot of different things that I'm playing around with, but I've been trying to keep the same ingredients and make work consistently with those ingredients. Oh, and I just started using rose petals. Don't ask. I don't know what to say about it. I have nothing to say about it, but I really like how they came out, and I coated it in resin so they'll never crumble and fall apart, which is kind of dope.
Impressive, impressive. And so I want to find out from the both of you, at what point did you discover the talent and gifts of Sundiata Acoli? At what point did you know that he was an amazing visual artist? And how did you find that out? Brother Emory, can we ask you first?
I really found it out when I was asked to contribute to the program.
Wow.
Yes, that was
wow. It. Okay, so this is going to be a real treat then, because this is your real new introduction to him. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what was your immediate feedback when you saw some of the pieces?
Well, when I saw the pieces, and then I read his text about art, then I could see what he was expressing through his art. It was about love. It was about his human quality, and it was about what he had discussed in the context of art being something to relieve to be for relaxation, pleasure, and for creating something beautiful for those he knew and loved and what have you. So that's what I that's what I get the sense of when I looked at the art, not from the standpoint of critiquing it as an artist, you know what I mean? But matter of fact, that would be a disservice, I think, to the art itself, because the fact that he created this art under the most adverse conditions, that at any given time he could have been stopped from in the middle of what he was doing, put back into lock up, and what have you. And so I looked at it from the context of him keeping his humanity, which shines through the art itself.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Sophia, Dawson, at what point did you were you introduced to the talents of Sundiata Acoli?
So Sundiata actually put me under a lot of pressure at one point, because he wanted to do a collaborative painting, which was like very challenging. So basically he would start, so basically what did he want to do? I was doing his portrait. And so he was like, okay, so let me paint you and your son. And I was like, okay, cool. So I had to find pictures, send them in, but then there was issues with like the type of ink that I used, I think. It was a little bit of a back and forth before he got the photos. Then he finished them. Then he wanted me, so it was a collaborative piece, but it wasn't like, I'm gonna do your portrait, I'll send it to you, and then you do what you want. It was like, I'm gonna do your portrait, I'm gonna send it to you, and you're gonna do exactly what I say on the rest of it. So a lot of what he wanted to include around our portrait were different symbols, Adinkra symbols. He wanted to include Black inventions by Black individuals. And it was fine, but because I worked really big and this piece was like this big and it had more stuff in it than anything I've ever done in my life, It took so long, and I kept apologizing, like, I'm sorry, I'm still working on it. But we got through it. It's a small painting of me and my son when he was really young. So that was when I learned about his work. And then through letters, he would send me pictures of some of the art that he did as well. So.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Well, we're going to pivot because now we want to hear you all, your both of your reflections on some of the pieces that he's done. So for those in the audience, we shared with our panelists a collection, a file of different art pieces by Sundiata and asked them to select a few of them that resonated with them that they would like to talk about. And so we're going to hear from them about the pieces that they selected. And then we're going to have them respond to 2 pieces that they don't know I selected. And I want to get some responses from them about this. And so this is really a dynamic conversation. We really want to sort of take ourselves out of this virtual context. If we were in a gallery, we would all be crowded around the 2 of you talking about the paintings on the wall. So we want to sort of recreate that in a virtual kind of way, if we can, right? And so I wanted to start off with this first piece, since you talked about her so much, Sophia Dawson. Let's throw this one in here. We can, y'all are in conversation, so if anybody feels who wants to go first, please feel free.
Yeah, I mean, I see it. I seen the well, you shift. I seen it from this. It's the labor of beauty, compassion, respect, love, all that you can see in the art itself. Sophia mentioned about the Adinkra symbols. That's the Sankofa symbol, dealing with going back and returning and knowing you never can lose what you had in the past. And so what have you. So, and it also shows in the context of his statement when he was doing the labor of love of the painting of his daughter, and how when he was doing that painting, he was so nervous and had to do it over and over and over when he was learning to paint, until he finally got it and got control of his nervousness and the brush to become the artist that he has become. So that beauty shows through that he had patience. He had inner patience. He never lost the desire for life and love.
Wow. So
that's what I see. I see that, and that's a lesson for all of us in this image that I see.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. And I just need to give her a shout out, because the sister who this is a creation of, the subject herself, is actually in the chat right now. Shout out to Sister Dayquee. But Sophia Dawson, can you talk to me a little bit about this piece for you as well?
Yes, my first thoughts when I see this piece is, since I know Dayquee, as soon as I see this piece, I literally think of "Don't let this smile fool you." That's how I feel about Dayquee. And I think that he captured this so well. Like I said, the day that I met her, before I met her, there was literally a room full of people schmoozing, drinking wine, trying to live their best Black History Month life. And she shut that whole event down and was like, okay, yes, we should celebrate, but how can I celebrate when my husband is here, and when this is happening, and when this person is going through this and we don't know their name? And she really, literally the whole room, everything just shifted. And she has the grace to carry that type of influence over a room, over a space, over ignorant people. And I was one of them that day, and I woke up. But she's also a very sweet soul. She's someone who I look at as another mother. And I feel like Sundiata really captured that. I also love the power, the strength that's in the background. It's not as dominant as her portrait. But if you look, there is a face behind her. The depth of the Black is really, really strong and powerful. It pushes her face forward, but it also makes you wonder, what is that darkness that's behind her? And there is a strength in being able to smile, a resilience of being able to smile, having gone through some things that people wouldn't even believe. And so that's what I take from this piece.
Wonderful. It's one of my favorites as well. Cool. So we're going to shift to Pure Love. Brother Emory, please talk to me about this particular piece.
This is the when he talked this. I understand that this is not his daughter, but this is, I'm quite sure what he was expressing when he talked about the love of trying to do the painting of his daughter, pure love, and it comes through. Again, it deals with his humanity as much as the vibration and energy that he's relaying through the artwork to those he's doing it for. It's showing that he hasn't been, he may be, his body may be in prison, but his spirit is still alive. His spirit is still
free,
one with humanity. And so I think that shines through in the context of the work and that he's done, and the amazing beauty of the work itself. The compassion, the softness, and the tenderness, the smile, all that is, and the choice of the, even if he may have done it from a photograph, it's his interpretation and reflection in that photograph itself.
Okay.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Agreed. Thank you for that. Sophia, Dawson, talk to me your reflections on Pure Love.
Like Emory was saying, I really appreciate the warmth of this piece. I like how it was done technically. So just like the skin tones being very realistic, the white that's in his beard, how that pops out and how it pops out also alongside the shirt. And just like how he placed the white in the piece in general, it kind of forces your eye to move around from the smile of the young lady to her eyes, to his smile, to his beard, to his shirt. And then you see that they are like essentially connected. The texture of the piece as well. And then just the pattern in the background and also in her shirt, creating like some type of balance. I really appreciate that part of it as well.
Yeah, the tenderness of this capture, I think, is really just powerful. And what the first thing that I noticed, well, the second thing, of course, was the detail of the shirt. For him to capture the wrinkles of the shirt that way, for me, was like, wow, that is significant detail. You could, possibly get away with not doing that, but he did it, and it looks, almost like a photograph. The level of detail of the wrinkle in the shirt, and so this is a real powerful piece for me as well. And
yes, I've been getting away with not doing.
Say that again.
I said I've been getting away with not doing that for a long time. Now I feel bad.
Oh, please. Look at him. He's teaching still. Okay. Waterfalls. Brother Emory, why did you select this one? What about this particular piece resonated with you?
Well, it's about the ability to imagine. And even if you still maybe from a photograph or interpreting a photograph or application, I think it's the ability to imagine, of being free and thinking of it in those contexts. I think that that shows life. It shows life, but it also shows the fact that you may have an avalanche coming up, but you're coming down and you have the water and the stream and what have you, and the more calmness of it as well. So you got two things going on in the clouds and in the mountains, and then as the water comes down, you get to a more I don't know, it could be subliminal kind of thing, a feeling, or he may have, but this is what I see from in interpreting it myself. Yeah. Being one with nature.
Thank you. What about you, Sister Sophia? What do you say? What jumps out at you?
Yeah, so as soon as I saw this piece, it just reminded me of the notion of the peaks and valleys of life, and also, the importance of continuing to push. That's what I think of when I think of the waterfall that you could see in the very front. Again, I think a lot for me always comes back to resilience, perseverance, persistence, breaking resistance, as my pastor always says. And that's something I think is very in alignment with the spirit of Sundiata. And that's what shows up for me in this piece.
Nice. Yeah, and it's interesting. The color scheme and a few other things seem to be a shift from some of the other pieces that I've noticed that he has done. So this one, if I were to see it among a bunch of other ones, I would not have guessed that this was his piece. You know, and so the versatility of this was actually impressive as well.
It seems to be like a more softer, subtle.
Yes.
It's almost like meditative.
Yes. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I agree with you in terms of the different, it almost looks like two different seasons happening, but also a transition between those seasons, you know, with the, you know, snow-capped mountains and the clouds, but yet when you go down to the stream, it looks like it's a bright sunny day. So yeah, tells a lot of stories. Okay, this one has not been named, but let's talk a little bit about it. I call it Leaves. That's not its name, and I don't want to just give it that, but that's what I've called it. But I'm curious to see what about this particular piece resonated with you all.
Well, for myself, it's like there's light at the end of the tunnel, and it's still dealing with the spirit of being free, even in the context of being in the belly of the beast, locked, but you still have the spirit and the desire to show life, a tenderness, a teardrop on the leaf. I mean, it's looking at growth, and that it's also looking at our inner growth and love and peace again, and harmony. Even in the belly, even in being in the belly of the beast, being locked up the way we are, humanity is showing through again.
Yeah, definitely see that. Sister Sophia?
Yeah, so this piece is so beautiful. The way that he was able to render the light next to the darks, even just how realistic the water drops look, it's so beautiful. When I initially saw it, it reminded me of a scripture. It's found in Job. I think it's Job 14, 7-9. It says, at least there is hope for a tree. If it is cut down, it will sprout again, and its new shoots will not fail. Its roots may grow old in the ground, and its stump die in the soil. Yet at the scent of water, it will bud and put forth shoots like a plant. And so just this notion, that's what when I saw it, I thought of a scent of water. And I was like, I don't even know the scripture by heart, but I know it exists. So I looked it up. But a scent of water for me, and there's another scripture that says that just like water is for a person in a dry desert, so is good news from a far land. And what's kept me going, and I don't know if this is the same for Sundiata, is that scent of water, that good news from a far land, like when you're ready to be done with something, and then somehow, some way, you find out that someone's coming home, or you find out that someone's done something. It's very encouraging. I remember Sekou was the first person I witnessed come home, and it blew my mind because I knew it could happen. I was hoping it could happen, but I never saw it happen. And so like that's what a scent of water is for me. Like, wow, you actually get to witness the notion of a testimony. it's enough to sprout something new and to keep going, to put an event like this together and be like, all right, let's try again, you know? And so that's what I think of when I see this piece.
Beautiful. I love the way it just reflects different things for everyone. And so I appreciate that. So now I'm going to throw y'all some curveballs. Like I said, there's just two pieces that I selected and wanted to get your thoughts on it. I can share with you why I selected them, but I wanted to get your thoughts on these two pieces. So this first one, Messiah. I absolutely love it. So let me just say why I actually selected these. I thought that this particular piece was a reflection of the other legacy of the Panther Party that does not get talked about as much, and that is the prioritization of children, right? The idea that this is what we're fighting for. These are the people that we're fighting for, but also the way that family particularly is held in high regard. You know, when people were going through their different struggles, you know, children were never left unattended. You know, you look at all of the Cubs, it's like they're cousins. You know, they all know each other's family, they all can lean on each other. And so I thought that this really reflected the kind of importance of children in general, but the prioritization of the freedom struggle of making sure that children were really clear about why we were doing this. Malcolm said, if it's not about the children, then what is it all about, right? And I feel like this was something that resonated with me and along those lines. So just curious to see what speaks to you about this. Brother Emory?
Yeah, it looks like it's saying, I am we.
Mm-hmm.
I am the future.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the children were the future, either we wouldn't have a liberation school, we had an alternative school. You know, and we wouldn't have been teaching them how to think, you know, for themselves and analyze and treat, knowing, and you know, so those are the foundations of the children is to because you know that at some point they're gonna be the ones who gonna be in taking over, in charge, and in the forefront of everything. So it's I think this one here is just, to me, I am we.
Great. Thank you. Sister Sophia?
Because you are.
That's right.
Listening to the reason why you chose it, and also as I think about the breakfast program as well, and also like the work that I've done working with young people in general, there's something so like we take eye contact for granted. That's something that I've learned in my work with young people. Eye contact goes a long way, even if you're not saying a dang thing. There are a lot of young people who don't have anyone to actually look them in the eye and hold a conversation with them, or look them in their eye as they hand them something or receive something from them. And I feel like the eyes are so dominant in this picture, how they're painted, how they're at the center of the canvas. So that's what my mind automatically went to. But also when I think about, I'm always talking about, so like, I don't have issues with anybody, but the only issues I have with current movements today is the service component. And I don't think that you can serve effectively from a place of anger or hate. I think that you can only serve effectively from a place of love. And the example I always bring up is, there's no way, me as a mom, I cannot think of waking up every morning to feed 10,000 kids if I was upset about what I was doing. Like, yeah, there were things going on that angered them and caused them to do what they needed to do. But you cannot feed children from a place of hate or anger. You just can't. You cannot even get a kid to be around you if you carry that type of spirit. But the children, like from the photos and the videos that I've come across, they were having the time of their life in those classes. And so, I don't know, there was something really special about that. And I feel like I don't see that today. I don't see that. I don't see people making eye contact with kids. I don't see people even being gentle enough or knowing how to deal with, like, adults get annoyed when you hear kids laughing and you're at an event, but it's like, no, they are the promise of our future. We need to hear that laughter to know that we're not going to die off. But this painting makes me feel like, okay, this child was recognized, not only by Sundiata, but by whoever he's making eye contact with. And that's so important.
Got it. And so Messiah is actually Sundiata's grandson. And so I think this adds a whole nother element to it as well. You know, this is, you know, he sees the future in this photo, in this painting. You know, this is this reflection of him in some regard, right? But I wanted to share one other one and get some feedback from you as well. Africa's Daughters. Go ahead, Brother Emory. I think you may be on mute if you're
It's a
talking.
parent's love, mother's
Okay.
love. It's a parent's love, a mother's love. He done an amazing illustration of showing that love, that tenderness, and with the mother holding the baby's hand and smiling, and with the other baby in the hand. But it also shows that the mother as being the breadwinner, or having to be the breadwinner in this photo. But it shows love. It shows love. It shows with intention to show love.
Mm-hmm. 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 Agreed. What resonates with you, Sister Sophia?
I automatically think about my son. I remember the first time we took him, my family's from Jamaica, and I remember the first time we took him to Jamaica. We went to the beach and he had Pampers on. He was so small. And this kid, like as soon as we put his feet in the sand, but also in the water, he just started to walk out because he had never seen like a body of water. And so we had to like stop him and bring him back. Like, no, you can't just wander off. But he was so captivated by it. And I don't know, like, I am a city girl, I really am, but a part of me would pack up everything and go there and live there and stay and raise my son in peace, honestly. We spent a month there and I was teaching art, and where we lived, we also taught, and it just was like the most liberating experience ever to just get up, eat food, work with him for a couple of hours, and then let him go run and play. Like he would disappear for hours, play with the other kids, and come back as the sun sets. All the kids just find their way back to come and eat dinner. And it just, yeah, this painting just took me right to that moment.
Nice.
But just like that notion of teaching, that notion of like, let me introduce you to everything that, you know, this world has to offer, and you could choose where you find yourself or where your niche is or what you like. But I'm gonna show you everything first, and you gotta get through this. Me showing you everything because you got one of the kids that's up on her hip who probably didn't enjoy how the water felt on his feet, and then you got the other kid that's like, all right, let me try it out, and that's the nature of like introducing kids to anything. You never know what's gonna happen, but I think as a parent, it's my responsibility to expose him to as much as possible.
Brother Emory, were you getting ready to add something else?
Like I say, it shows patience as well.
Yeah.
Like she said, come on, baby.
Yeah.
Come on, you can do it, baby.
Yes.
Agreed. Well,
So
thank you all.
He had that.
Yes.
He had to feel that patience.
Mm-hmm.
He had to feel that art. To do that art.
Indeed. Well, thank you all for indulging me in the two additional pieces that I selected. We want to go ahead.
Oh no, I said that was fun. Thank you.
Okay, good. So we want to open up the floor for questions. Mimi is going to help facilitate us through this process. Mimi, can you let me know if there are any questions in the chat that, if so, let's hear them.
Well, there's one, I guess, question, comment in the Q&A section.
Okay.
And this is for Comrade Minister Emory. Do you know who created the saying, educate to liberate? A lot of your work is reflective of the times due to the liberation ongoing struggle. This was presented by
So, yeah. Well,
Atno
that
Smith.
came about discussion in the context of having political education classes in relationship to doing the work. It just came about as educate. That's what we're about: educate to liberate. And so that was became a slogan. I can't say when and how it came about, but it just came about in the context of the party and our interactions and our political discussions and around what we were doing and what we were about.
Thank you. I've got another question from Laura Whitehorn. Sophia, at what point did you encounter
Oh,
Emory's
yes.
art?
So Emory's art, I encountered Emory's art at the Maisel Cinema at the Black Panther Film Festival. I think we had it this year, but it was virtual. And it was his art. And then that day he also happened to be coming there. And I lost my dang mind because I don't really get fangirl over people, but Emory, I actually really look up to him and admire him. So if you look, I have all the pictures from that day. Smiling like I was at a music concert with my favorite artist. But that was my introduction to his work. I believe that every year there's always like a booklet or something that we have for sale. It always has his artwork on it. I also purchased the book. There's a, oh God, what's the name of is his name Raheem? The individual who's always selling books downstairs at the Black Panther Film Festival. He was selling Emory's book and I bought it, either that or I won it in a raffle at the film festival. But everything all happened at the same time. So I learned about his work and then he happened to be speaking on a panel at the same, yes, Raheem, his name is Raheem. Yeah, so Raheem was like, oh, you got to get this book. And he has said that every time and I always spend more money. But it was a good purchase. And then I got to learn a little bit about his work, but then I got to hear him speak as well. So, and then Emory has always been very gracious to, if I have a question, if I have a creative question, if I'm stuck, I can reach out to him and he gets back to me. Only thing I haven't done yet is find the time to come to Cali and actually sit at his feet, because that's what I really want to do.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice, thank you. Mimi, do we have any more?
We do. We have one in the chat, Joe Sergio. I'd like to know how many of us believe law enforcement is waging an actual war against Black people, Black men in particular. And isn't it appropriate to call our political prisoners prisoners of war?
That is the case, but in Sundiata's About My Art, he states himself, I am a political prisoner. So that could be synonymous with being a prisoner of war in the context of the Black liberation struggle, the struggle for justice, for equality, equality, all those things. You are becoming a prisoner of war because you're fighting you are in a battle for quality of life issues. So you are in you could consider being in a war, but I acknowledge it's the way that he has acknowledged himself.
Okay, thank you. Harold McNairn also posed a question. Anyone know who the Bad Sister featured in a couple of paintings on the website? Who that is? Is that Walida Imartia?
That is Walida. Yes. I don't have it ready. I would share it, but I don't have it ready. But it is an actual beautiful capture of Walida, who's been working on his campaign for decades actually now. But that is her.
Here's another question from Ade Jackson. Questions for the panelists. What do young artists, creatives, and those not institutionally trained organize their work to better spotlight Black liberation? Emory Douglas is a legend for doing that. So let me state it. What do young artists are? Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't hear the question part of it. If you can just read the question part of it, go ahead.
What do young artists, creatives, and those not institutionally trained organize their work to better spotlight Black liberation? Maybe how do they?
Oh, that's what, okay. Got it. Got it.
Okay, Emory, you want to go first?
How do they or how can they?
I think how can they is a question.
Well, you have to be informed and enlightened. You have to be in the community. You have to be concerned with the issues. That has to be also reflected in the work. And as you do the work and you critique and evolve it, then it possibly can come to reflect the issues of the community in the work, of the social justice issues in the work itself. So you have to be on the ground, you have to listen, you have to hear, you have to, all those things. You have to feel what the people feel. Then you can interpret that in your artwork, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say that one way, yeah, be informed, like Emory said, but also like go and meet the people that you care about or that you want to make art about and talk to them and find out how your work could support them, as opposed to just like, you know, it's very easy to go to Google Images. I mean, back when I started doing art, there was no Google Images. You had to go to New York Public Library, go to the image library, type in a word, find a file, go through the file, find images, and then you made your art from whatever you found in the library. Now it's so easy to just Google somebody's name and then print out their picture and paint it. And that's fine and that's effective to a certain extent if you just want to raise awareness or, you know, through posts or social media. But if you really care and you're dealing with real people that are still alive, go to them and ask, how can my work be of service to you? Because other than that, you're just doing it in a bubble. And so it might feel good that you've done it on a therapeutic note, but it may not be effective if you do it in a bubble, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'll add also, I think it's important to you know, look for the art and the artists in spaces that are around us. Oftentimes, I think we go to, even though you talked about not being those in non-traditional spaces or not being trained in traditional spaces, you know, I'm amazed at some of the creativity that I see in some of the oddest of places. I mean, I think that's somewhat of the history of graffiti also, like the fact that we made, you know, the walls and sometimes the subway cars, a canvas of people who did not have access to some of those traditional spaces, but making sure that we actually open up our eyes and look for some of those artists and some of that creative genius in some of the spaces that are, you know, most accessible to us. It's there.
I have a follow-up question to that. This is from Ade Jackson. Question is, does social media uplift or water down the ability of artists to support Black liberation on the ground?
Mm-hmm. I think social media is a plus, but it's also so, I've been in a life-threatening situation once in my life. And I was like, oh, hell no, never again. Because I have my son with me and I was like, I actually am not cut out for this. But I think that social media, you know, for some people, so much is wrapped up in this notion of like, let me go to this so that I can document that I went to this, so I can share that I went to this and show that I support this, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's just different from people that were really, I mean, I could boldly say that I know people that risk everything and they continue to still risk everything. For my generation, I can't say that everybody that's posting and has social media could say that comfortably. They can show their alignments to and who might never come to Brooklyn to an art show, who may never make it to an open studio night. That is the reality of the situation. And I do find that people learn about things that they would never learn about through social media. But on the flip side, there's so many different truths on social media. And so people that really care, they make it. So
I would say the social media is a tool that you can use to get the message out. It went and look at now. It's a very important tool. But at the same time, also you have people in the world who have no other access but through social media to get the message in parts of the world, or to get your message beyond the boundaries of the United States, or even within the context of the boundaries of the United States. Only have they get it. They get that. That's so it's a tool to use, and as an artist to share, to inspire people around the issues and the work that they see on social media.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just want to just make sure we reiterate that social media is a tool, right? It can be used, however, by those who use it. And so if there are folks who have the intention of actually using it as a tool that will elevate, that will educate, that will inspire, inform in principled ways, then it will be that. And so like any other tool, it's responsive to those that are wielding that particular tool. I'm sorry, Sophia, you were saying something.
Oh, no, I wasn't.
Okay, good. It looks like, do we have another one in the Q&A?
I have one more. We do.
Okay.
Anton Smith is asking about copyright issues. Does Sister Dawson have copyright problems from our historical era? Research and photos from that time period is copywritten.
Yeah, so I did have a copyright issue once, maybe like 8 years ago, and I resolved it legally. So yeah, I'm born in 1988. I wasn't around when the movement was going on. And so I can only rely on film and photographs that were captured then. And so a photographer who was basically following the Panthers around and documenting this story reached out and was like, hey, using my pictures, if you sell your work, I need a cut. And I told Daquee, and she was like, oh, hell no. But I was like, Daquee, we got to do it the right way. So I reached back out to him. I have a lawyer who works with me. I pay him in artwork. And he sat with me and helped me come up with a contract that said these images from this artist's body of photography work. Yeah, bartering is the African way. This artist's body of photography work, I can use, I think it's like 10 to 12 images, and I can never get sued for using those images, and I can use them in any capacity that I want. And if an original work sells, then I do owe him a percentage. And that's pretty much, once something's in the domain, you are able to use it. But if I was to become very profitable off of a piece, then yeah, I do owe a percentage back to the person who captured that moment. But I don't know, with a lot of the political prisoner images, for example, I ended up reaching out to them directly and their family, which is how I know so many folks, and asking for photos, and I can use those photos freely. I'm also taking my own photos now as well, just to avoid dealing with people. And it's cool because I believe in whatever grace you want to one day live in, you should also extend to other people. And I don't want someone 50 years from now coming and taking my portrait that I done spent a lifetime making and just flipping them and getting a whole lot of money, and my kids and my grandkids and my greats don't see nothing from that. That's not going down. So I'm actually okay with what happened because now I know how to deal with it when it's my time. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's no such thing as public domain for your work that you've done. They may see that, but legally there's no such thing if your work, and that you can, and if you got proof of that, then you can it may cost you to prove it, show it, but it's your work. So it's like somebody coming to your house, taking your stuff out your house, and using it as their own. So I think I would tell all artists to have some type of protection for the things that they do today in any context.
Definitely.
To have it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because this is not like the 60s when it was a thing of mutual respect and doing it for political reasons or purpose. You got vultures, predators out there who thrive off of exploiting
Mhm.
that which they think can be profitable for them,
Mhm.
and not for political prisoners or any other issues.
Mhm.
So that's where the concerns come in in the context of today.
Brother Emory, your work is so much, probably more so than anyone else, a reflection of that particular time. What kind of challenges do you have with trying to control how and when your creations are used? I'm sure because with social media, with the web, people can print out something and they'll use it for a flyer, use it whatever. How do you navigate those kinds of things?
On a community base, if it's relevant and socially conscious, I have no problem if I share it like that. On a community basis, I always work with community activists and stuff to use. If they want to use something and I think is relative, I agree to that. No problem. You know, it's just when it comes to exploiting it for other reasons, then that becomes the issue where I have to deal through the Artist Rights Society and with legal folks that I deal with and clarify, getting that straight. And that does become an issue from time to time that I have to deal with go through that vehicle to straighten things out.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know, you know, you had, you know, you got a couple of murals that were just recently done in Oakland, but it was a young lady who came and asked could it be done, and they were done on the wall downtown. You know, then there's across the street they had a big poster print up of one of the images of the work that I did.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a mutual thing where I understood what it was about, and it was a request to do it. You see,
Mm-hmm.
so that's you know, yeah.
Yeah.
Then you have sometimes you have youngsters out there who don't know, just jealous, and they start making these flyers and what have you. If I see them, maybe later on I'll let them know or something like that, but I'm not gonna trash them, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Got you. Okay. Thank you. Mimi, do we
when
have?
It comes into the marketing thing, the real marketing deal. Yeah.
Got it.
Sorry.
Mimi, we have time for maybe just two more questions.
Okay. Decree has asked if Sophia can talk about her book, Correspondence.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Can I go grab it real quick? I'll be right back.
Okay.
On the
Thank you,
link,
I'm
it's in
actually
the
gonna
chat.
find the link to it. So correspondent. Oh, guys, don't look at my nails. I have to get my nails. Sorry, being an artist and trying to look like a lady is just so counterproductive. But Correspondence is my new book. It has 8 years of letters from political prisoners written to me. It's really thick. It took a long time, but because we were all stuck inside last year, I was able to actually sit down and scan all my letters. I think these, no, let me find Sundiata's letters. He has out there right enter. You should actually get the front of the book somewhere. But yeah, so this book is actually a fundraising tool for political prisoners. I really did it with the intention of finding a way to help support people who have come home, because now so many people have come home. Yeah, so here we go. So for Sundiata, I have a lot of his cards that he wrote. I have a lot of birthday, Mother's Day, a lot of Mother's Day cards, a lot of Kwanzaa, Happy New Year's cards. Yeah, his section is mostly filled up with cards.
Wow.
And I will put the link in the chat for where you could purchase the book. 40% of the proceeds of every book goes towards supporting political prisoners. It just came out in February. I haven't had any book signings or any in person anything, I actually want to hire a publicist to help me push the book because I'm not that, you know,
Mhm.
knowledgeable about books. It's like a completely different world from art. So if anybody has suggestions, please reach out. Feel free to reach out. I'm gonna put my email in the chat too. And I will find the link and share it. Go ahead, Emory.
Brother Emory.
Yeah, I just wanted to let it be known what I have been doing is when, like I mentioned Oakland and what have you, when if it's something that somebody want to sample something in their artwork of mine, I would tell them to make a donation to political prisoners. That's what I've been doing.
That's
for
good.
those kinds of things. Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful, good. So while you're looking for that, I mean, I know that we said we have one more question, so I won't start to close this out yet. There's one more question.
No, that was the last one.
That was the last one. Okay. All right, great. So part of what I did want to close out with was just getting two things from you all. What are some recent projects? Sophia, you really jumped us off with your correspondence project and book. But Brother Emory, if you can talk about other current projects that you are working on now, things that are coming up, and then also how people can stay in touch. How can they find out more about the stuff that you're doing? How can people support you correctly? If people want to purchase your art, where do they do that? How can they do that?
Yeah, I do it on a limited basis in Oakland, California, but if they email me, they can get all that information. So you can share my email, it's fine. My name, emerydouglas@gmail.com. On the social media that I really deal with is Facebook. And I don't answer a lot of messages. Every now and then I do. But if you contact me and then phones about, then that way we can communicate that way for sure. Yeah. I'm doing some work right now that that's in the process of developing, but it's an ongoing process. So it's not something that I want to just mention at this time, but I am doing as much as I can at this particular time.
Thank you. Sophia?
Me. I dropped my email in there. If you are interested in work or original prints or the book, you can always send an email. I'm really slow with email responses, but if you're interested in work, I always connect you to my gallery. I respond much faster on Instagram, sadly. I am on Instagram mostly, Facebook, not so much. The link to the book is also in the chat. And I have a few exhibitions coming up, God willing, in this late summer and fall. Oh, why is it not coming up? If anybody else can't see what I put in the chat, let me know.
It's there. They just have to scroll up. It's there. I saw it. It's there.
Scroll up. Yeah, I missed it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm supposed to have some art shows opening in late August into September in Brooklyn and New York City. I have murals popping up all over the 5 boroughs. But if you follow my Instagram, I always post where those are located. I'm looking at a calendar with what my summer looks like, and it's scary. Oh, the cow parade. That cow parade that they did in New York 20 years ago is coming back. So I'm designing one of the cows, and I'm hoping to include some portraits of political prisoners on there as well. Those giant cows that they had all over New York. It's for a charity event or something like that. But either way, there'll be some representation of the work that I do on that as well. And yeah, I'm doing a mural inside of a transitional home for adolescents and young adults, community center up in the Bronx, a lot of stuff. But the art show that's coming up, I'm excited about because I'm working on a new body and also some of the work that I've done with political prisoners. It'll be a few different shows showing different stuff that I've done. So I would definitely stay in touch. If you email me, I'll put you on my event list and then we can do it.
So you said that you're on Instagram mostly. Did you put your Instagram handle in the chat?
Yeah, I'll put it on one more time.
Okay, great. Just so people know how to find you. And then if we can get just some closing remarks, looking forward in the future, what are your hopes for upcoming visual artists and their attachment to our movement? What are your hopes?
Well, my hopes is that they continue to be inspired and to be informed, enlightened about the issues, so that that can be more inclusive in the work that they do. Because art is a language; it's a way to communicate. And then it was because of in the neighborhoods and community, people learn through observation and participation. But today it becomes more powerful and impactful because everybody is on a fast pace in many ways, and they're on the electronic media, and they can see and learn and at least become enlightened or become interested in the subject matter of the issue that's at hand. So I think it's to be enlightened, to be informed and enlightened about what the issues are.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sophia.
For me, I guess my desire is for everybody, or creative people specifically, since that's what we're talking about, but everybody also to identify whatever that is going on in the world that we live in that keeps you up at night, and to not just be mad about it, but to do something about it. That is what I would hope for artists. I would hope that my work would serve as a model, an example, a template for what people can do who care about anything. There are so many issues going on that it's actually overwhelming. That's I'm like, let me stick to what I know and what I'm called for, because we're not called for everything, but everybody is called for something. And so that's pretty much my prayer. That's kind of what I try to influence my young people to do. I show them what I do, and then I'm like, all right, so what do you care about? Like, what's wrong in your building? What's wrong on your block? What's wrong in your neighborhood?
Mm-hmm.
And if you could say something about it, what would you say? And then it's like, okay, how would you say that creatively? And that's pretty much it. And I will hope that part of my legacy would continue, if nothing else.
Good. Well, thank you both. Go ahead, Brother Emory. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just would like to say also, if artists, there are artists who don't do social justice art just because it's a cool thing to do. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Understood. Well, I want to thank you all both of you for not just participating in this particular discussion, but for your work, for what your work has done in terms of inspiring people. Brother Emory, for decades, your work has informed, has educated, has inspired, has captured a moment. And so thank you. Your work has been able to politicize people. And so I thank you. Thank you for that. Sophia, Dawson, I watched your work transform people. I don't know if you know this, but I watched your work at the concert that Belafonte did out in Georgia, and I watched people stare at it and be lost in it, ask questions. And so I'm thankful that you have been able to use your medium, your craft, your creativity to really tell the story of our freedom fighters. And I really genuinely and sincerely appreciate you for that. And so thank you both for taking time to engage in this particular conversation. I really, really appreciate you all. And this has been an extremely important and informative space. So thank you. So for those in the audience, I'm not going to ask you to come off mute, but if you can just, virtually or whatever, just thank our panelists, Sister Sophia Dawson and Brother Emory Douglas. And before we close, I also want to thank the members of the Bring Sundiata Acoli Home Alliance, especially those that worked hard on this particular panel and worked hard to get the art gathered together. So I want to thank you, Mama Sophia Bandelli. Thank you for going through everything to track down people and get the photos of these pieces. Thank you, Alejandro. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Sister Sophia Elijah. So those of you who said in the chat that you appreciated this event, we're going to ask that you show your gratitude this evening by helping to bring Sundiata home. We're going to ask that that be the way that you show your gratitude. We need everyone to sign and share the petition that has been posted in the chat. We want you to make sure you you share information on the website. But with specific regard to the petition, we want to secure 15,000 signatures by next month. 15,000. We're right now about to approach 10,000. So we're asking you to help us, help Sundiata capture 15,000 supporters that will help us with our argument to make sure that he is home. We also invite you to amplify our messaging on all of our social media platforms. We are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, we are on Facebook. We ask you to please follow us on those mediums and make sure that you help to boost out the message so that we can make sure by the end of this year, Sundiata Acoli is home with his family and we can have this discussion directly with him. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. We ask that you stay safe, and we ask that, again, you do all that you can to help bring Sundiata Acoli home this year. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Much love and respect, everyone.
All right.